First of all, the word racist. Now, I do want to touch on that a little bit because people will say, oh, that's racist and this racist. I mean, by definition, right? To be racist, you have to have the belief that your race is superior to other races by definition. Is that what you believe, and do you have something to add to that?
If I'm not mistaken, the definition of racism, first coined in 1933, is the thought or belief that all or part of a race is superior or inferior. So that can happen within your own race, a different race. It's like saying Japanese kids are better at math than American kids. That's a racist statement.
Gotcha.
Even though you're acknowledging their superior skill by definition. But I have a lot of conversations with people who use the words white supremacy when talking to me, not about me, but in general. To white people, that is an offensive word, and immediately that wall's coming up. And I want to break that down.
Let me get clear on this.
Yeah.
So back to what I was saying.
What's up, friends, family, and fans? Welcome to Life on Podcast. This is where we listen and inspire friends in entertainment.
And every walk.
That's right, because life happens to everyone. I am your host, Stone Stafford, along with your other host.
I was going to say the other guy. I'm Johnny Vaughn. What it is,
what it up. Hey, so this piece of chalk that we have in the middle of us here, his name is George Sedberry, but you all may know him as the White George. What up? Well, according to your Instagram, it's the Whit George.
Yeah, because the White George is taken.
Yeah, the Whit George.
By the way, he got a hold of me that whoever holds it, the account White George, and said, I bet you'd really like this account. And I'm like, yes, I would. Never
You
heard
want
back
to
from
know
him.
something that's funny? I bet it's because you white, because we've been trying to get 007 for this Joker for about 6 years.
This guy won't come up.
Nobody's trying to come up off of it.
Really?
Nope, won't move off of it.
So I have to be 007 instead of 007.
So he hasn't gotten back to you? Just
Never got back
ghosted
to me. He has like one follower. It's just a throwaway account, but he don't want you having it. So
if I know folks are sitting there like, y'all jabbering, but I don't even know who was this dude. Why y'all did he play football? Did he blah, blah, whoop? So look, I'm not going to do a whole lot of stuff explaining it to him because he will, but I don't know what else to say about this. Everything I can say about him. He is a walking encyclopedia. The guy is amazing, seriously. So if you ever had a TV show like The Most Interesting People in the World, and no shade,
this is the White Dos Equis.
You really would qualify for that. Seriously, George is literally one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. And so we wanted to make sure we shared it with you guys. Lots of knowledge to share. He is a networking master. I mean, dude, like people flock to you to do stuff. I'm talking companies and corporations. I'm going to let you start it however you want to start it, but kind of give some folks an idea of who you are. We definitely want to talk about where you came from because your come up story, I think, is very inspirational. So where you came from, how how you're doing what you are doing now, and we're going to get into all that kind of stuff after that. So ladies and gentlemen,
the White George.
I want to publicly announce this is version 2.0 because our microphones didn't work last September when I was here with Stone. We had an amazing podcast with no audio.
I just got finished saying how cool you were. Like, seriously.
I'm never letting this ever go. I'm a former racist, drug addict, convicted felon times 10, and ex-con.
Amen.
Well, damn.
Amen, right?
Out the gate, huh? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to bury the lead. And so I basically grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and as you might imagine, I grew up with an ideology that was very detrimental and dangerous to my life. I grew up really racist and ended up just going through life, but ended up getting addicted to pain pills, stole jewelry from houses, got sentenced to 13 years in prison, went to prison and somehow figured out where my life had gone wrong, and I found a way to make it go right.
All right, well, we covered a whole lot there, so let's break some stuff down. First of all, the word racist. Now, I do want to touch on that a little bit because people will say, oh, that's racist and this racist. I mean, by definition, right? To be racist, you have to have the belief that your race is superior to other races by definition. Is that what you believe, and do you have something to add to that?
If I'm not mistaken, the definition of racism, first coined in 1933, is the thought or belief that all or part of a race is superior or inferior. So that can happen within your own race, a different race. It's like saying Japanese kids are better at math than American kids. That's a racist statement.
Gotcha.
Even though you're acknowledging their superior skill by definition. But when it comes to white people, there are, I think 6, 7. Okay, here's the degrees of being white from one end to the other when it comes to race. And I'm going to say this, but I want to start making a point of this. I have a lot of conversations with people who use the words white supremacy when talking to me, not about me, but in general. To white people, that is an offensive word, and immediately that wall's coming up. And I want to break that down.
Let me get clear on this.
Yeah.
It's offensive to white supremacists, or is it offensive to?
As somebody who grew up racist, being called a white supremacist is offensive to me because they're not one and the same.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But it's funny, like I learned in the Black American culture, when they say white supremacy, I know what they're talking about. I have to stop and remind myself because in my culture, a white supremacist is a KKK or Aryans, people that their whole identity is tied to the color of their skin, their life, their moral code, right? And whether they're violent or hateful or not, that's a white supremacist. I didn't have that. I just thought I was better than y'all. I have no affection or connection to the color of my skin because it's never been held against me, right? But I was holding yours against you. That's racism.
Okay.
It's not a supremacist. There's a difference in our world. And the next level from that is you go to willfully ignorant, right? People who just don't care.
Right.
And those apathetic people, those are the ones I think you can reach most easily. After that, you got the do-nothing people. They're not racist. They don't speak up. They don't get involved. They just want to be left alone, but they like everybody.
Out of sight, out of mind, doesn't touch my yard.
I see no color.
Exactly. Yeah, those people. And then you start coming to allyship, right? And I started off as an ally, but I've become an advocate. And there's a difference there. And then from advocate, you go to activist. And that kind of breaks the whole range of white people down from one spectrum to the other.
Got you. Okay. So I have several friends that will fall in one of those gaps. And this is why we can't just say good or bad, right?
There's varying
Because you
degrees.
feel certain.
Well, everything's a gray area at this point, especially when
Right.
you start to break down. When you start talking about cultural backgrounds, the understanding of that definition isn't even something that would have been prevalent to my understanding, even when using the term racist.
So how do you go from racist George to advocate George?
Two easiest explanations I always say is God in prison. God pulled back the veil over my eyes when I was in prison. I was a drug addict. I was addicted to hydrocodone after surgery for 10 years. I stole jewelry from houses for a while. And I got addicted to this, to being a very good jewelry thief as much as I was an addict to pills. Got caught, sentenced to 13 years in prison. When I first got to prison, I had a cellmate named Larry. His last name begins with a W, and for the life of me, I cannot remember it. Larry and I, we were locked down 23-1, and he
Wilkins.
I said Whitman.
I wish Wilson. It drives me crazy. Larry asked me, "Are you racist?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much." And he goes, "Can I ask you some questions?" And we were on 23-1 lockdown at that time. But Larry asked me a lot of questions, and because I didn't know him and I didn't care, I just told him what I thought was my truth. Right? I wasn't rude or a dick about it, but I told him my truth. And Larry asked me questions. He asked me very good questions. He didn't judge me on my answers, and I felt comfortable enough with him to be honest with him.
How old were you at this time?
40.
So you wow. Okay.
Yeah, 40.
How old was Larry?
28, 30 maybe.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm thinking it'd be the other way around.
He's on a domestic case. And we got to talking, but I got to ask him what it's like to be black in America. And that's a conversation for the first 40 years of my life I've never had. And I got to see his perspective. I got to see his experiences. More importantly, I got to ask him what it's like to be black in America. And that's not a conversation a lot of white people have. Like we talked about, the matriarchs of the Black American family. We talked about music and culture and domestic violence. And he broke down domestic violence for me in a way I had never thought of. Like I couldn't understand the stereotype of the black household. And he broke things down for me. But the thing that he told me that sticks with me to this day, he goes, "Your grandmother would love me." I'm like, "Yeah, Larry, my grandma would love you. You're an awesome guy. Of course she would." He goes, No. It's not about the race. She would just like me as a person. I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you know why she doesn't?" I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, the color of your skin." He goes, "No, she doesn't know me. And what you don't know, you fear. And what you don't understand, you fear. And if you don't take the time to get to know these things, you will always fear it. And it creates all these problems." He goes, "That's why old white people can have black people they love, but still be racist."
I watched a video on your page. It's actually one of my favorite ones. You did a speech at Dillard. And this is when I told you that I remembered your face. It was this video. And then when we were talking to one of the students outside of one of the dorms at Howard. And you said that what actually helped you with that is that you realized that you hadn't experienced anything outside of your privilege and that you didn't like being a minority when you were in prison. A lot of people don't... To conceptualize what that statement means is I didn't like being a minority is the number one thing. Is you said that you don't know a lot of white people who would want to be born black.
Don't know a single one.
Not a single one.
Except Rachel Dolezal.
Right. I tagged her in one of my videos too. That's funny.
Shout out to Rachel.
It's okay. I mean, she was trying to do good in the world. She just
Yeah.
confused.
I think exactly. And then some of it was received wrong because of the way it was presented, or the way it was discovered, I guess. But Walk us through that mindset of, because you said it was a shock getting it. I mean, the 23-1 is a shock enough when you lose complete freedom. But when you get inside and now you go from having that privilege that may be unspoken, it's just something that you're used to living with, and you maybe have not put yourself in a situation to have to think about what life would be without this, to immediately being in what, the 5%, 8% of where you were?
Wow, I think it was probably 60-40 black to white.
Okay.
I knew when I walked in, and especially in jail, I'm a white boy, and that's the first time I felt racism. I don't want to say racism. I felt a racial divide being white. I was treated differently, even though those walls broke down when you start talking and communicating, which they always do when you communicate. But I noticed that I was being treated differently. Like, I want to be liked and accepted like anybody else, even in prison. It's human nature, but I knew I was being judged. Like, it was a weird feeling at first for me to understand what was happening to me, because they're looking at me like, white boy this, white boy that. I'm like, I'm a grown-ass man. I'm a 300-pound yoked-up man at the time. Like,
and you were yoked up.
Yeah, and I had to kind of like back off, and I realized I'm in a different world with a different set of rules, and these rules are life and death, and I'm not calling shit. My privilege has no meaning here. It did in some way. Being older in prison helped me a lot. Right, because I'm kind of an OG at that point. By my age, my beard started, go a little gray or hair. So I didn't get messed with as much, but I also tried to take a position as a teacher or a mentor in prison to everybody. And I didn't join the white gangs. I didn't do any of that crap. My murderers were my closest friends because I learned so much about life from those guys who lost everything. There's a lot of wisdom there. And it was funny that my second time down, I went back on a violation. I hung around with a lot of black gentlemen who were lifers. And those men taught me how to read people. They taught me how to read a room in a way I never have. I could see a play before it happened. Before even, I knew a guy got his box is about to get hit. I could see the inmate staring at the box, and I'm looking for his fall partner who's going to go with him. I found the guy before they even knew they're about to, because somebody's going to go by and get a honey bun or a candy bar, and that guy will never know. Right. So you learn to read human nature, and it's one of the most valuable lessons I got out of prison. These men who never see the streets again, and I think a lot of cases they were overpunished. They've accepted it, and their mission is to educate young men to not come back. And it kind of broke my heart, because I see God puts us in different places, whether we want to be there or not. We have a purpose, and those men were courageous enough to accept their place in life, whether it be fair or not, and use that to teach and educate others. I saw a level of strength I didn't know you could have, to know that your rest of your natural life's behind there for second-degree murder, which should have been 15 to 20, right? But we know how harsh sentencing works. And those guys still found the courage and the will to try to do nothing but good.
Now, you said both of you guys have thrown this word privilege around. Now, there are a lot of people who will say, I don't have any privilege. It's no more than what you have or whatever. How do you help someone like that understand what is meant when we say white privilege?
For one, white privilege offends a lot of people, because, like me, I wasn't given. I worked my ass off. I pulled myself up my bootstraps. Right. But I also started to realize a lot of people don't have bootstraps. Some people have them, don't know how to pull them up. Some people don't know what a bootstrap is or where it's located. They were never taught. And we just think because that's our world, everybody else should follow along with that. And it's not that way. So all I have to do is ask a white person, would you trade places with a black person, just an average socioeconomic level of you, or would you wish you would have been born black? No. You got privilege, bro. You don't understand that.
Right.
People who don't have that choice have to live that life. And maybe it's better than it was 100 years ago, but it's still... Can I break down racism, what it is for you? And maybe I can go there.
Let it be broke.
Racism, in my experience, in my world, racism is a very sexy, seductive thing to feel and do, right? And then I feel racism is hereditary and genetic. Genetic meaning, I'd say genetic, sorry, environmental, right? Where you're raised, your parents, your friends. You're raised in an echo chamber. And second, I say hereditary because your parents or loved ones pass it down to you. So that's kind of where I say that. People get offended by the hereditary part. So once you have it, and then you have friends that do it, and you realize you don't have to be accountable. Because let's say I live in a neighborhood and I had mowed my yard all summer. I got 3 cars up on cinder blocks, and Johnny, you move in my neighborhood. There goes the neighborhood. There goes my price value because a black family moved in. Not because I hadn't mowed my yard. Not because I won't take care of my property. Because I don't want to look in the mirror and admit I'm a piece of white trash when I can blame the black man and his family. Do you know how easy it is to go through life like that?
I don't know.
I don't have to. I don't have
that
to
level
accept
of privilege.
You have that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So being able to do that is so sexy and seductive for people. They don't want to give it up, or they don't know how to give it up, or they're not willing to be accountable.
I think an important element of that gets overlooked too is that echo chamber creates its own confirmation bias in itself, because all you're surrounded by is with that, and it blocks you from even being able to have those conversations that would present that opposite viewpoint.
You don't know you can change. Like, I knew I was racist. I didn't know how to change. There's no book. I mean, you don't go to Facebook Market and buy a book for $99.99, stop being a racist in 30 days or get your money back. It doesn't exist. So it's a journey a person has to take, and it's difficult.
And they have to want to take it. Because you just said you don't know you can change. There are some that feel they have nothing to change.
Right.
So there's no interest in doing that. And that's the biggest blockage I'm coming into the conversations now with everything that's going on in our government. And which is why, and for me, it's helped lower my cortisol, because I realize I'm talking to people. Not only do they refuse to believe that there are these issues and problems, but they really truly believe that there are no issues or problems. And that's why I had the statement, to me personally, is one of the greatest statements I could have made. I said, until what's going on right now, until the negative consequences lands on their doorstep and rings their bell, you will never get them to understand that, wow, that's actually not a good idea for this group. They'll never see that in a million years. And so I stopped arguing that, because I realized there's nothing I'm going to be able to do until your light gets cut off, or until you get kicked out of your house or whatever, and it hits you in your chin.
Can I give you a perfect example of that?
Yeah.
Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, right? Absolutely. Let's send him to Mars, because when he gets up there and opens the door, goes, I'm here, and he radios back and goes, to the return trip, I go, I'm sorry, the spaceport's closed. Doge has cut our funding.
All of a sudden, doesn't seem like a good idea anymore.
Not a great idea.
Those 19-year-old kids got mad at the boss, and he's stuck on Mars. So that would be...
And half of them were hired because of DEI.
And I bet he would want to shut... Oh, you haven't heard DEI's been replaced.
Oh, boy.
WEI. White, entitled, and incompetent.
Oh, yeah.
Linda McMahon for WWE Wrestling? I mean, she has no experience.
Now, with that statement, I'm telling you right now, let me tell you what happened just now when he said that statement. There is someone watching this. They just saw you as a sellout.
I don't give a
They
shit.
just
I'm a
saw
white
you as
savior.
you are against your people.
I'm a white savior. I'm white, and I save my own ass.
Boom.
By definition, when I get called that, I don't care.
Right.
If they're thinking that, they're probably not somebody I want to have a conversation with. It just...
Yeah.
That was a cold ass rap line. I'm just saying. No, I want to ask, before we get too far away from it, I think it's important to go back to how you got to prison and talk about where this, because I was going to use the term sympathy and empathy before we did it, but that's really what it is. It's a separation of those things. You can understand and say, I feel sorry for you, but to truly comprehend and
That's
emote
empathy.
to it
Yeah.
is a completely different thing, which is what leads to that being able to change.
Right.
Is to garner some sense of seeded empathy to grow to the point to where you're at. The story that I saw you tell about how you got to prison, you talk about staking out houses and watching the lock boxes and going through thousands of houses and just knowing the blueprints and just knowing where somebody kept their jewelry box. The thing that got me was you said you were always very careful to not make people feel like their homes were broken into. And you even admitted in telling the story that it's kind of weird to say this because I'm robbing you because I need money and this is my come up, but I also don't want to violate you. Like, you were sympathetic and empathetic in the moment of committing a crime against a person. And I have a huge question of how you were able to resolve that within yourself to continue to do it. But I think the important thing is looking past the negative is that seed of empathy, of caring about other people has always been there. Where was that implanted? One, how were you able to look past that to commit the crimes? Two, and three, what was the ultimate part that it played in actually helping you to grow past the racism part?
It's funny you bring that up, and thank you for asking that, because I think when I was an addict, I was more sociopathic than I was anything. I just adopted that. I quit talking to God. My morality mattered, but if I didn't talk to God, I didn't have to be accountable to him, so I just stopped. And being in the throes of addiction, I was definitely sociopathic because I was hurting people. I was violating their homes, and I wasn't caring enough to stop, right? So I still had enough morality and, like you said, sympathy. I don't think I'd figured out empathy yet.
Okay.
But I didn't want people to feel violated in their home. Because in my mind, if you're looking, I don't clean people out. I would take a couple of pieces. Most of the time, you'd never know I was there, and that was important to me. It's probably how I got away with it for so long. It was when I went to prison that I saw pain and I saw suffering. I saw death. I saw sexual assaults, stabbings. I've seen the worst man can do to each other, right? And I've also seen some of the most beautiful moments in my life occur in that same hateful hell on earth. I walked out of prison, and again, it took me a few years, but I didn't know what I had as empathy now. I started to feel pain in things that I would see or hear a story, and I could internalize it. And I still struggle with the fact that I'm a very empathetic person now because it hurts. Mm-hmm. It hurts. It's a weight I carry. And to be honest, if I could not be empathetic, I would probably choose it, but I don't know how not to be anymore. It's a weird dichotomy.
Oh, it's absolutely impossible to put the genie back in the bottle in most cases once it's out.
It rules my life, though. I feel things, and I feel compelled to speak up or do the right thing, because I didn't do that all my life.
Sure. Is there? I'm going to assume the answer to this question is yes. Is there a level of remorse from that period, or do you accept that as that's who I was in that stage? I wouldn't be who I am now without that period.
I would not be who I am without that period.
True. But I mean, is there remorsefulness that comes through that? Like, or is it you're just accepting of it, and it was that guy did that. I'm no longer that guy.
I used to struggle with being an ex-con and my crimes, and I drug my dad's good name through the mud, embarrassed, humiliated my family, friends. I struggled with that for a while when I got back into the world. It was very difficult, but I learned how to forgive myself. And then I knew if I could do that, God would forgive me. But the fact that I had victims in the world who were innocent and never met me before, and on paper they are my victim, like there's court order, no contact, that drives me a lot because I feel like I robbed a lot of karma out of the bank, and I feel it's in a deficit, and I feel like I owe it. I hurt innocent people, and it's something that drives me. It's like I've got to chase that to do enough good in the world to offset the pain I caused random people. But I'm not guilty. I just live with the fact that I did it.
Right. The U.S. prison system, obviously being through it, in your take, what's wrong with it? What are, in your opinion and your limited knowledge, because we all don't know everything, but in your opinion, what's wrong with it? What needs to be fixed, and even how do you think that can happen? Big question.
Number one thing I think men and women land in prison are two things: is lack of quality education and a single parent household. And I'm not blaming that. And I want to clarify. People like to think the Black American culture, they're deadbeat dads. I met so many dads who may not live with their mamas. They love their kids. So that stereotype bothers me because I got to see it differently.
Right.
So having said that, but it affects every community with a single parent raising kids. And I see the lack of education more than ever, or quality education, has made a difference. Because when you can't read or write or do math, what are you going to do? You're going to hustle. Right. And then you're going to go to prison. And then some of those guys turn out to be brilliant at math. It's crazy.
Interject because I want you to continue that, but I got to interject a question. When we say a single parent household, is it just the fact that there's only one person, or is it the dynamic of a mother and a father to you?
That's a complex question with complex answers. It can be same parent households. I think two parents give differently to their kids. Kids identify as the disciplinarian and the comforter, et cetera. So I talked to a lot of people who talked about the fact they never knew their dad, or their mom was a drug addict, was never around. And hearing their stories, they're the ones telling me they feel their life would have been different had this not with a parent. Always goes back to a parent.
Right.
And I saw the lack of education. I went to GED school for a day and took their test, so I didn't have to go back. But there's kids cheating off me in that class. And I let them. I'm like, it's prison. Who cares? But they found themselves in the most difficult level of GED class, and they probably should have been the first or second level. So they screwed themselves.
Right.
Wanting to cheat, see where it gets you. I mean, I told her, someday I want to own 640 acres that is 1 square mile, and I'd like to put cool cabins, and I would like to foster kids 15 to 17 that nobody wants, and give them some sort of prepared or training for life and let them be kids. And that's a goal that I have, because I don't have any kids that I know of. But I see the value in that. And I see these kids are redeemable. But back to your prison thing. The prison system is broken. There is no rehabilitation. Do not think there is. It's a huge money pit. It's meant to burn money. we don't want rehabilitation. Right. Convicted felons are a permanent blue-collar class. It is so hard to break that ceiling as a felon to go anywhere outside construction, roofing, manufacturing, and they have a permanent blue-collar workforce, and they just keep adding to it as they die off. Right. It never stops. It's very beneficial to our economy to have a convicted felon working class.
And anyone coming out to, because words matter, he said it's difficult. He's not saying it's impossible, but it is difficult. I just do want to make that clear. So if you have aspirations, by all means, go for them. But
being an ex-con is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. As far as it gives me freedom, I'm unencumbered by things. Right, I lost everything I own, and everything I own now fits in the bed of a pickup. But you know how much I can travel and how free that makes me? So I learned to give up stuff. Mm-hmm. And the fact I'll be at a party, like we'll be at dinner, and I'll be like, yeah, when I was in prison, I saw this, and the whole table's like, but I know it commands attention. Mm-hmm. And I use those stories because people don't know a lot of convicted felons up close that they're not scared of.
Right.
It's a powerful tool if you use it correctly. And a lot of my friends have. I've seen a lot of success stories with felons.
So how can prisons improve?
For one, you got to start caring about the inmates. A lot of the prison guards and officials would keep us locked down 24 hours a day for safety reasons. They would never let us out of the cell because we can't hurt each other, and it makes their job easier. That's the problem you're fighting. You've also got most prison guards, just whatever.
I was going to ask, are they part of the problem
10% are decent people. 80% are just in the middle, worthless, there for a job, and then 10% will make your life hell and will hurt you and try to hurt you and punish you. These are the kids that got picked on. They're too dumb to be law enforcement, even a county sheriff, which is the starting point, that they go get a job at $15 an hour in a prison to warehouse men and tell us how to put our shoes straight. Knowing these guys are taking a low-paying job that we can end their life anytime we want. We run the place until they bring in reinforcements. We run it. So that you would be willing to do that, you're not helping people. You're not rehabilitating people. You're literally there to control another man. What drives you to want to control another human being for $15 an hour? I don't understand it. I think there is.
That's an easy answer, though. Power is satiating.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you don't have it. You get a small taste of it. The money doesn't matter. It's the addiction to having that power. That's absolutely what it is.
I have seen, but I've seen good COs like that care. They're not trying to write you up and get you in trouble. And I mean, I've had difficult ones, and I know some ex ones that I like. They got out of it, but I don't have a lot of respect.
Can I ask I've heard friends of mine who've been in prison who've come back and they said they've got friends who were COs who got out of it. And I never asked them this question. I want to ask you now because of the interesting answers I've gotten so far. Why do you think they got out? Is it because they feel like they can't make a difference? Is it because that they don't have that bloodthirst for power? Or is it because they found some other avenue to make a difference?
This is going to be a simplistic answer.
That's his way of saying, Johnny, that question ain't as smart as you thought it was.
No. I'm going to try to, because that could be real. I'm going to go down a huge rabbit hole, but.
Okay.
And the reasons are going to be various, but.
CO does time with an inmate just like we do. 12-hour shifts, right? We're doing 24 hours, they're doing 12. A 30-year career means you did a 15-year bid inside prison. You don't have your cell phone, you can't smoke, you don't have freedom. The guards don't have freedom in there. Right. So it also will consume your soul just like being an inmate. And I have seen men and women that have spent 30 years there and they were just fried. They're soulless individuals. So I think a lot of people see the frustration and they want to do good and they thought they could do good. When they realized you are fighting a bureaucracy that can't be beat, they leave.
Yeah. My sister was a CO.
Really?
She was a CO for, I want to say, Denise, if you're watching this, you can correct it in the comments.
Sorry, Denise.
I want to say 12 years she was a CO.
Glad she got out.
She was breaking out of a fight, and she injured her knee. And I think eventually that started taking its toll, if I'm not mistaken. And that's why she had to retire. But she was one of those COs where they went to her. Mm-hmm. She was kind of mama bearish type of thing and stuff like that. And obviously I know my sister, she's good-hearted and she cares. But for her, it was a practical reason to leave. And I'm sure she probably wanted to leave earlier. And for some of them, it really is just a job choice. Like she made sure she stayed there long enough to collect her pension and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So,
It's funny. They build prisons in economically depressed areas everywhere, right? Because they know they can get cheap labor, inexpensive labor for that. Right. And they don't need intelligent people for this job. So when you go where poor education and schooling systems are, like the parts of Arkansas, then you got them good old boys in there and you're bringing kids from Little Rock gang members in to rednecks from Dermot, Arkansas.
Right.
And can be a dangerous mix together. Again, they just throw bodies at the problem.
Just so I don't get whooped. Denise is actually very smart. So I do want to throw that in there, though. She's a very bright woman. I was surprised she became a CEO, but anyway, moving on.
I had a guardian angel in prison named Miss Shanika Nickelberry, and I couldn't call her Shanika at the time.
Is she black or white?
I was going to say the same thing.
Irrelevant question. Jokes.
She's actually Cherokee and black. It's very exotic.
Okay. Yeah, we had that little Cocoa Puff in there somewhere.
Shout out to you, Shanika. I couldn't say her name forever because of the stereotype associated with the name, right?
Yeah.
So Miss Nickelberry, when I was at work release, kept me from going back to prison over something I didn't do, but they were writing me up for. And she got the major involved. And I did laundry, and she was my boss. And she loved drug dealers for laundry because we do math so well. And everything has to be documented. And this is the insanity of prison. They gave us powdered bleach, but I have to record it as a liquid. So there's a complicated mathematical formula.
Convert the powder to...
And no calculator.
Oh.
I'm having to do my physical weight, mass. Like I had to get her phone and Google some stuff. So once I had these parameters, I could convert it. I go, but this is just dumb. Because
How many grams is an ounce?
16, isn't it? No, 454 grams in a pound.
And you can start right there.
28 grams. 28, yeah, 28. Sorry, I haven't bought drugs in so long. 28 grams.
That's the reason why I forgot.
Yeah. You can take the drug dealer out of the hood, but
I ain't bought an ounce of booger sugar in a while.
Oh my god!
I don't think I ever knew that. I didn't know you actually had to do this calculation. So obviously they were putting you to work and using that skilled labor intentionally.
And I made money. The inmates paid me $3 a piece to bleach their stuff, so they looked icy white on Sundays. So I didn't have money yet, from a job. So they suspected me of doing. They strip searched me 2 and 3 times a day forever until Miss Nickelberry got a hold of them and they stopped. I used to ask the guards, like, you like my you know what, privates? He'd get mad because his boss is making him do it. So he and I had real issues over, I got tired of him looking at my junk. But this is just how dumb it is. Like, if I'm making money, I'm not keeping it on me at work. I'm not keeping it in my rack. So they're doing it to harass me. They know they're not. So they're just trying to make it difficult on me because it's a game they play. It's all a game. Like you said, it's a power trip. And we know we have to just go along to get along to go home.
Okay. So am I oversimplifying it by saying the prison system really is just a way for us to make money?
Yeah, it's a $500 billion, whatever. It's a blue chip industry in America. Absolutely. Prison is look at the amount of convict labor we lease out. I mean, I worked on a farm picking vegetables, building barbed wire fence. Yeah, it's our prison system is extremely broken, and we warehouse mental health patients. We warehouse addicts. We don't treat them. We warehouse them, and that's doing.
Well, there's no profit in the cure. You know that.
There's no, of course not.
Now, is the playing ground, except for what happens in the world of the prison system, is the playing field pretty much even, or is there white privilege within the prison system?
No, it just depends on your job and status more than it just by the color of your skin. But it is people. I've been in jail in Texas where there's literally whites and Hispanics in a barracks with a picture. Somebody drew of a raccoon and a line through it back in 2004. And all the black guys were right across the hall from us, segregated, because the white guys were like, nope, and they knew better. That's the first time I experienced that. I was like, wow, to me. But in prison, no, you segregate yourself, but at the same time, I made so many friends with black dudes you become friends with. We break bread, we talk. But if shit jumps off, you line up by race. Okay. You line up by race in a heartbeat. Yeah. And you better be fighting for your race or your own race will punish you.
Right. So you went from, racist to advocate, right? What is it that you're doing with the advocate? So I heard from my cousin, whom I met you through, Derek Stafford, that you can rattle off freaking like HBCU colleges.
You screwed this up so bad.
In something, excuse you?
I was going to.
Yeah, so you can't have a plan in here and then not communicate it out of here and expect me to know it. So
we do this so well.
Welcome to the Johnny and Stone Show. We'll be right back in 2 and 2.
Oh, you've been on the light side. I was wondering when we're going to allow you to
fight
unleash the beast on you yet.
No, I was going to get to that point exactly. I was like, man, you're sitting up here, you telling us about all this racism, all this white privilege, all of this stuff. He asking you about HBCUs. You sitting here rocking a bison shirt. I want to know what the mission is You spent all this time in prison. You've learned all of this stuff. You've got all this life experience now. Not only can you rattle this stuff off, but you're going to put you to the test and make you do it.
Yeah, I got to see that.
But why? Why from where you're from to wearing a Howard University shirt right now?
I was just there 2 weeks ago on campus, but I saw the lack of education in prison. It bothered me, and I didn't know how to change it. And then when I fell in love with what HBCUs have done for the world, I slowly, over time, I think God kind of put it on my heart a plan that I can help education, because my goal is to put 1,000 kids through college on full rides at HBCUs. Right, 1,000 kids. And I don't want A+ students. I want the fringe students. I want the C+ ones. The teachers are begging me, this is a student you take a chance on. They don't look good on paper, but I promise you.
These are the ones that change the world.
They give me 1,000 of them and I'll change the world in a generation.
Right on.
Nice.
That's exactly. So, and HBCUs have always been open to all races, so no one can say I'm being discriminatory, because Bluefield State is 90% white. So you can't, I cover all the bases, but I want it to be HBCUs, because there is nothing in the American education system like historically black college universities. Auburn and Alabama schools don't get together and hang out because we're SEC or Alabama, right? Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Yeah, they may be rivals, but when they're together at a party, they're family. Right. And it's 101 schools that do this, and nowhere else in American culture education does this exist.
So HBCU, for those who may not know, historically black colleges and universities, why have a sect of colleges and universities, closed group like that? Like, what was important as to why they even had to be created in the first place?
Well, after emancipation, education was illegal in the state of Virginia until the late 1800s. You weren't allowed to be black and educated. Even after freedom, they wouldn't let you. So schools were started. There's a lot of allies and advocates and even activists that knew that because of the lack of education that came from enslavement, or the way black Americans had been held down, that education was the key to lifting up the community. And so from the Rockefellers to Booker T. Washington, Lewis Adams, a lot of them realized the school in the churches, the AME church, the Methodist church, the Catholic church, they realized the value. So they created these schools and spaces, because these states didn't want black kids going to school with the white kids. I mean, it's well known. So especially South Carolina was horrible about it. So they made sure to put them usually on crappy land near, dumps. It's funny how these schools have turned into such a valuable real estate now, though, where they thought they were putting them out.
Morris Brown,
Morehouse, Spelman, yeah. And so look at Howard. Having said that, they exist because parents didn't want white kids going to school with black kids. And they did everything they could to prevent the education. And I think what makes HBCU so magical is they've never had the money and support to be a Notre Dame or a Michigan, but that struggle has made them so powerful, and the lessons and the preparation for life they teach these kids is not something you get at a PWI, and I just think that makes it magical. And I'm just shocked that people at PWIs don't send some delegates to some of these HBCUs to say, how do you do such amazing things with no money or resources? I would think that's a conversation some of these schools want to have.
Well, I'll tell you this, it's a cultural thing. It's kind of what we do.
Make something out of nothing.
I think black American women are some of the most educated subset of Americans in this country.
That's a statistical fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
They get PhDs, multiples, when only a master's is required, because that's what society requires of them. Or even they feel like they've been made to be inferior and they have to do that.
It's the quintessential twice as hard for half the game.
And they've created this intellectual superpower within America. I mean, black women are changing STEM and STEAM every single day now.
I've got a question about what you're seeing on the inside of that. When it comes to everything you just said about the HBCUs not having the funding but still being able to succeed, why is the funding not there when white history is so intertwined? And let's just take here, for instance, Spelman College. This is becoming a more and more known fact now that Spelman College is not named after a black woman. People have just always assumed that it was.
It's named after Lucy Spelman.
I thought it was Laura
Spelman. Lucy's her mom.
Spelman
Lucy's her mom.
Lucy's her mom. Laura Rockefeller is who Spelman College is named after. Why isn't there Rockefeller money, or is there?
Rockefeller's donated $1 million to Spelman to get it off the ground. Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald, the former CEO of Sears and Roebuck, partnered together to build Rosenwald schools all across America, right? So what they did is, this is a crazy story. You've heard of Goldman Sachs?
Yes.
Okay. Paul Sachs of Goldman Sachs got together with Julius Rosenwald, who's the CEO of Sears and Roebuck, and said, hey, there's a guy I want you to talk to. Think you're going to like him. You ought to try to find his book. It's called Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. So this rich white dude in Chicago, you can't go find a book by Booker T at a local bookstore in 1900 Chicago in the white area, right? You have to put some effort into finding that book as a white man. But he got the book and he read it. He reached out to Booker T. Washington and said, I'd like to meet you. So he and Booker T got together for a meeting, and he basically said, Booker, you want to change the world? Booker's like, all right. So what they did is they raised money. Julius sold, I think it was $600,000 back then of his stock, millions today, to raise money for these schools. And they went to the communities and says, we'll match your funds. And these schools in the South raised over $5 million from bake sales and garage sales and carport sales to match the funds. So they built 5,800 schools in 880 counties in 15 states from Maryland to Texas. And by 1920, over 600,000 students had graduated from these schools. And test scores were so abysmal that they were the highest increase in test scores in the nation at that time. The power of education. But then they went to John D. Rockefeller and convinced him to start the General Education Bureau. And I believe it was $180 million he committed to that. And that's how we built schools in the South, and we started educating people who don't look like me.
And these are HBCUs?
No, these are schools. These are high
period?
schools.
Yeah. High schools.
But they fed into
high
HBCUs.
schools.
Yeah, they have 5,800 of these schools. They still exist. There's Rosenwald halls all over HBCU campuses. Because people don't realize the Jewish community and Black America have had this partnership for a long time. Because white people, we never really paid attention to how Jewish community was treated. But they found allies in each other, and people don't realize there's a lot of support there.
Now, you run into somebody like me who's hearing what you just telling me. I've never heard half of what you just said.
Not at all. Not at all. And so,
this goes to the whole educational part of being underly educated about our own people. School me, white boy, on my blackness.
I say that to people all the time when I talk to them. I say, look, if you ever would have truly learned about Black history, I need to talk to this white guy.
I know everything about the Cowboys because I'm a Steeler fan, right? They're my mortal enemy.
Right.
Right.
And I don't even answer the phone until like 6 ring when they call, though.
So, boom.
Do you know why Tony Romo never got married as a Cowboy?
Here we go. Here we go.
He couldn't give a girl a ring.
Okay.
Are you a Cowboys fan?
I'm gonna let you get one more out. Go ahead.
No, you're a Cowboys fan?
We're both Eagles fans.
Fire die, baby.
Fans.
How are you Eagles fans from Atlanta?
I'm from Jersey, first of all.
I'm from Jacksonville. We didn't get the Jaguars.
Yeah, that part I don't
That's a
understand,
long
but,
story.
yeah.
My cousin was drafted by the Eagles and played there for 9 years.
Who?
He's in their ring of Lito Shepherd, and he's in their ring of.
I didn't know that was your cousin.
Yep.
Nice.
So that solidified my fandom there. I try to support the home team, but I wasn't born.
Yeah, I
into
do when the
having a
Eagles
team.
aren't doing anything interesting.
So yeah, I like Philly teams. That's just what it
Did the
is.
Eagles win anything this year? Did they do it?
Yeah,
No,
they
they
only
won
won one game. It was called all of it.
You know, it's I love the Eagles. Don't get me wrong. I was happy they won
How do you
because
not?
statistically, I knew the Chiefs wouldn't win. I predicted it because mathematically, it's almost impossible to win 3 straight Super Bowls because it's never been done, right?
Well, until it is, but yes.
Yeah, but statistically,
Correct.
Eagles were the safe bet. Just on that alone, I didn't watch the football game all year. Didn't watch the Super Bowl. I saw Kendrick Lamar in clips, brilliant at halftime. It's funny how white people hated an all-black Super Bowl halftime, but we've been having all white ones forever. It's a funny thing, but anyways, very clever. And
He said it. We didn't.
it was clever. I love art.
Yeah.
I love creativity. And it was
brilliantly
layers. It was
done.
layers
It really
and
was.
layers.
Yeah.
And Kendrick Lamar's a genius. I don't know his music except They Not Like Us. I know there's a big.
No,
I
his
don't
music
keep up-
is no less genius.
but I've heard
a lot
that.
of it talks to us. You know what I mean? He's very much almost like what Bill Cosby was. Like, get your ish together.
Bill Cosby as himself is one of the greatest comedy videos. I love that. My name's Jeffrey. I'm 4 years old. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Jeffrey on the.
I don't remember that.
And they say,
But before I lose my thought, because you were talking about all this stuff, Johnny and I literally were like, "Wow, we never knew this." That little lesson you just gave us right there is what we're talking about when we talk about the original intention of like CRT and teaching Black Americans' contribution in American history. To learn cool stuff like that. Now, it is hard to teach us stuff like that without the context. Why was it so important when Rockefeller hooked up with Booker T. Washington? What made that such a special thing? Well, you do have to talk about how blacks were treated in this country. And now that's when you start hurting people's feelings. But the story you just told me right there is more of a picture of unity than I have heard from any, I mean, so if your goal is unity and American unity, then you teach stuff like this. But it goes back to our original conversation again. It's like if you can't relate to that, or if you refuse to realize that this is what's going on in this country, you're going to see that as woke, broke, DEI, CRT, evil, I feel bad, that's reverse racism. And then we're just stuck. I'm so glad you told that story, because that is a quintessential example of what I'm talking about.
Before you do the Whitman thing, can I test the waters and see if I can guess the answer to why that is, though? Because we had a conversation earlier today at lunch, and you asked the question. You said, do we want to be right or do we want to win? Which creates this rabbit trail of, do you have to publicly have a partnership to verbalize and show the world we are partnering or doing what we're doing? Or is it necessary to do some backdoor hidden work to actually attain the victory?
Considering the racial impetus of what you're asking from like white going into black to be an ally, right? I think you have to build credibility and trust before your work can be valuable or it can be accepted. So I think like we talked about earlier, if you have a movement with a brand, people are cynical. It's like self-serving. But if your movement is about a movement and you ain't really trying to publicize it, then people realize the sincerity and passion. So I think first you have to go in and do the work and meet the people and show that you're serious and sweat equity. That's what I did without realizing it. And when I realized people were very gracious and loving to me and open, again, it became easy for me then, but I think you have to go in and do the work and understand what you're doing. You can't walk in as an outsider. It's almost arrogant to think a white person could come in without any involvement with Black America and think they can fix. For one, it's arrogant to think you can say what the problems are outside your community. That rankles me. But the fact you think you can fix it or throw money at it, and because it's white money and your money, it makes a difference, it don't work like that. You need to understand the culture, respect it, experience it before you can ever begin to know how to fit with it.
Right. No, that's fair. That's definitely fair. I still want to get on the HBCU thing, but before we do that, from a white man's perspective, right? This whole thing, rather be from your Frederick Douglasses to your Booker T. Washingtons to even your Bill Cosbys or whatever. From a white person's perspective, now I know you're now mixed because you're so advocating Black history, but what would be your message to the Black community as far as our role in our own demise and how we tarnish our own brand?
Oh, I got no opinion.
What would be?
He can't speak on that.
I'm a white dude.
One, the word was opinion, and then two, everyone has one.
I have no opinion. I don't think in terms like that. I don't look at Black America critically. I don't look for problems. I try to tell people this. I look for beauty. I don't look for trouble. I don't focus on it. I don't see it.
So it's interesting you should say that because I see it as a beautiful thing. I see it as the fact
you
that...
mean the him answering the question?
No. Well, yeah, because, it depends on the perspective that you want to... the perspective you want to see it, because you can see it as, I don't want to point out the problems in the Black community. Or you can see the beauty of, hey, you guys got to understand, like, if you look at how the power that you have in your community and how important your brand is and take ownership of that to the point where everything you want to do now is to uplift it and you actually don't want to do anything to tarnish it. To me, that's a beauty perspective.
I want to ask you a question because you said earlier, when has America ever been about unity? Can you tell me?
In the microcosm of America, I will point to my East Indian friends, I will show you unity all day. I will point to my Hispanic friends, I will show you unity all day. My Jewish friends, I'll show you unity all day. Why can't we? And that's not a question for you to answer, but like I said, from an outside person in, I've never heard a person say, I've heard them say critically, well, look, you guys shooting yourselves. You were like, yeah, that's the critical side of it. But I've never heard someone say, have you guys ever thought about this? Or what about this? Like, why are you waiting for the man for this? And as far as I'm concerned, you're invited to the cookout for the rest of your life. So you have a license
and he
to speak
wants
on
to
it.
keep that invitation.
Just saying. But this would be a great, and I won't force it, but this would be a great example of one of those hard conversations where it's like so tricky to have. We don't have it.
Can I say this about it?
For sure.
Every community in some ways fractured in this country, right? And it has been very powerful for our government leaders to keep Black America fractured and not on the same page. I believe Dr. King lost his life not because he united Black people. He united poor people, white people with Black people. And that's how you change this country. Black America is 15, 16%. It's a $1.5 trillion GDP in 160 years. The greatest wealth increase or value of wealth from zero to $1.5 trillion since the end of enslavement. I don't know if anybody else in history has ever done it. So if you take this 15% of America and they unified on things and they voted and they spent their dollars, that 15% is enough to shape this country and move it. So I would say
they had to burn Greenwood.
Black America holds so much collective power in this country, and not just with their dollars, but their choices, the role they play in America, their contributions. So I'm actually excited by the day if somehow the polarization goes away and pulls together. I would be really excited to see what kind of change can make.
There's your answer. Yeah, there's your answer.
And that's why they keep us divided, because they know it.
Yeah, I agree.
HBCU quiz, go.
Oh yeah, so explain to us what this quiz is that I heard about. So it's something like you can do so many in a certain amount of time.
I have a lot of practice, but I did 50 in 60 seconds.
50. I'm ashamed to say I don't know if I can rattle off 15. All right, we're gonna do a little timer here.
Before you do it, I have got university presidents to do this. I've got all kinds of people. I tried to get Anthony Mackie to do it, Captain America, but I wasn't able to. Because they were always talking about the film, and this wasn't film related when I got to interview him.
Oh man!
But I'll keep doing this. So
we're gonna see how far. All right, so we are going to see.
Get yourself ready here.
Yeah, we are going to see how many HBCUs George can rattle off in how was the time?
60 seconds.
In 60 seconds. All right.
Somebody counting?
I have my stopwatch right here,
And I'm gonna count.
I'm gonna put it on the timer actually.
Count fast.
Yeah. Oh, you gonna roll? Okay.
Ready, set, go.
Morehouse Spelman, Morris Brown, Morehouse Medicine, ITC, Payne College, Savannah State, Meharry, Fisk, Tennessee State, Lane College, Harris Stowe State, Lemoyne, Owen, and Memphis, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Shorter, Philander Smith, Arkansas Baptist, American Baptist College, Southern Grambling, Southern New Orleans, Southern Shreveport, Southern Baton Rouge, Xavier, Dillard. I'm going to go to Central State, Wilberforce, Delaware State, Norfolk State, Hampton, Virginia State, Virginia Union, Florida Memorial, FAMU, Edward Waters, Bethune-Cookman, Texas Southern, Prairie View A&M, Wiley College, Paul Quinn College. Let me go to a different state. Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State, Jackson State, Tougaloo, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Miles College. I've got to get out of there. South Carolina State, Bennett College, NCAT, North Carolina Central. God, why am I drawing a blank here?
That's 1 minute. It's all good. So
54.
New record.
Thank you, because I was like, when you said it wasn't even Virginia Union, it was something else. I was like, who? And I lost count.
And most of those I've
good.
heard of them. That was 54.
54.
I can tell you can probably get to 75 easy though. If this is an out of practice.
60 and 60 seconds is a goal if I practice, but I also want to do all 101 just from memory.
Okay.
Like put a blindfold on and rip it off.
So these are all HBCUs.
There's 101 open right now. There were 107. The most recent was Pencil Lewis College in Detroit, which Governor Whitmer redesignated because it started off as Lewis College of Business in 1929 in Indianapolis. And Violet Lewis moved a satellite office to Detroit, and that became the main one. Lost her accreditation in 2015. And Dr. Dwayne, is it Thomas? He's the president. He used to be the chief shoe designer at L.A. Gear. And Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, bought this amazing building, gave it to the school, funds the school. There is no tuition. There is no room and board for a student to pay. But it's all short form master classes. And they work with Nike, Foot Locker, Procter & Gamble. They work with massive. And I met Dan Gilbert, the billionaire owner of the Cavs, at the school. And it's one of the most amazing HBCU campuses you've never heard of. It sits right on the water. There's Canada. You walk out the back, the beautiful grounds. There's Canada. There's the water.
When I found out it was over 100 HBCUs, I was like, dude, no way. And then I started reading some of the names, and then you start to realize I've heard of this place before. I've heard it spoken about. Heard somebody said they went there, and you just never knew they were an HBCU. It's a hidden gem that's like hidden in our faces of our culture.
They call it the hidden gem of the American education system. You went to Morehouse, right?
Yeah.
What made you choose Morehouse?
Scholarship. Had some money to go.
But didn't Dillard also accept you?
They did.
Shout out to Dillard.
But I mean, shout out to New Orleans. New Orleans just wasn't the state for me. City for me.
So much bugs and heat and humidity for me.
Yeah, it made me depressed. I mean, shout out to New Orleans. It's all good. It's not for everybody. I put a post up, and obviously I didn't engage because obviously this is someone who's truly clueless. He'd be the last person to tell you, as they are. But I was like, for some reason, I said, why is it that when we, and I said we as people, why is it when we, Black Americans, complain about problems like equity and stuff like that, y'all just see this as griping and like things aren't what they used to be? And this guy chimed in and said, well, what do you contribute since Obama? And he went on to, in so many words, paraphrasing that I should be happy that we had a black president. What more do you want? What else are you contributing? What has been some contributions of black Americans that, and I don't want to just say white people because it's not just about white people, that people just cannot do without today?
I got one of my favorite ones from one of your videos.
Which one?
Ice cream.
Yeah, so
if
if you remove the black American element from this,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have it
collapses.
today.
How'd you turn the air conditioner on today?
What are some?
How did you turn the air conditioner on? In this room, you turned the
hot?
heat down? No, how did you turn it
Oh,
on?
I turned on this.
On a controller on the wall? You mean
I
David
see.
Crossway,
Okay,
the
you're
black
right.
American guy who invented the AC controller?
Who?
David Crossway.
David Crossway.
Yeah, he didn't
Okay.
invent air conditioning. He invented the controller, the thermostat for your wall.
Okay.
The fact that where our human blood is all the same, Dr. Charles Drew proved that. He also is the one that created the whole science. He's the godfather of human blood. So like all this life-saving liquid that flows through us, we know what we know because of Dr. Charles Drew, a black American guy who was not allowed to attend an American medical school. He went to Amherst in Massachusetts, lettered in 5 sports in college at a PWI, but he had to go to Canada medical school. So to work, he became Morgan State's football coach and their first ever athletic director to pay for medical school in Canada. So, he went in and he's the one that helped the Red Cross build blood banks, blood drives, able to separate plasma, refrigerate it, ship it to soldiers in World War II, saving countless tens of thousands of lives. So much of what we know to blood is a black man. No, but not even that. You got your heart, right? What about the pacemaker? The control module was invented by Otis Boykin. He invented guided missile systems. And he got Lewis Latimer. This dude was genius. Thomas Edison said he invented the bulb, but the carbon filament, that was Lewis Latimer. And then he patented the process, a more improved process to make the filament and all these incandescent light bulbs we use forever. He's so badass that he's on Alexander Graham Bell's patent for the phone because he drew it for Alexander Graham Bell. Talented man. Right. Mark Adine, he's on 3 of IBM's first 9 PC computer patents. A black man.
So what you're saying is a culture that we know of as it is today crumbles if you remove the element.
If you remove any element.
You said something about you said something a while to me about a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't remember what you said, but obviously.
Ready? See this?
Yes.
It's a paperweight without 3 black Americans. Mm-hmm. Okay, number 1, you got Dr. Gladys West, who gave us pinpoint accuracy for GPS. She figured out the gravitational and tidal forces on the Earth, and it barely moved our shape a little bit, right? They're such powerful forces, but that could throw GPS off by 100 to 300 feet. Mm-hmm. She figured out the mathematical equation and algorithm so that we take that into account, and that's how we have pinpoint accuracy.
Black and female.
Yeah, you have when she went to Naval Surface Warfare Center after she got her math degree from Virginia State, it's the only job she applied for that called her back, but she wouldn't respond to them because she didn't think they'd hire her when they saw she was black. So they called her over and over. She finally got a hold of her and said, "Hey, we want you." And she said, "I'm black." And they go, "We don't care." She spent 42 years there. She's in about every inventor's hall of fame there is. She's so highly decorated by the Navy. It's somebody you'd never heard of, right? So she did that. Dr. Valerie Thomas at Morgan State University, brilliant lady, went to NASA. What's crazy is we launched a satellite called Landsat. Am I boring you?
No, I just couldn't resist. No, this is from me trying to come back to. I'm like, this is crazy.
So NASA lost a satellite called Landsat satellite program. It's still up there sending us data from the 60s. Problem is, we got this data and we didn't know what to do with it. She, never having seen a computer before she arrived at NASA, wrote the computer language for the eggheads at NASA to understand what she could mentally conceptualize. So she was that brilliant. So now that we have this data coming back and we're reading it, farmers figured out we can track weather patterns through this satellite information. So they started sending this data to her to interpret. It's called a Val dump. Valerie Dump, right? She helped to revolutionize wheat farming through this. So in 1987, she'd been working on stuff. She headed a team that created the illusion transmitter, and she patented it in 87. That gave us 3D imaging. So that's how you get the 3D imaging on the phone. And then Jesse Eugene Russell's a Tennessee State University graduate, and while working for AT&T, he headed the team, and it was his idea to come up with digital and wireless networks, and he put the team together that built it. So all of our cell phones are a paperweight without Jesse Eugene Russell's brilliance and a Tennessee State University graduate.
I'm trying to figure out how to take my mic and then drop it, but it costs too much. So
Yeah, don't do
I'm
that.
gonna
I'm gonna do this. I have a
I wish
really,
I could remember the guy's handle so I can send him a clip of this. But like I said, I dismissed him so long ago. It's fine. Oh my God.
I'm embarrassed, one, because not do I hold myself to any standard of being a historian to any right, but I do feel, especially after talking with you for the last we'll call it 5 or 6 hours that I should know more about my history and my culture and my people than you do. But I do not, and I'm okay with saying that. I also, with your level of activism, from that evolution that you painted from the beginning of this conversation to now, and you being an activist for my people, our people, I'm going to say this. The question that I want to ask you is twofold. One, I'm a fan of the 48 Laws of Power. Not that I live by them, but because I feel if you don't understand them and so many people live by them, you don't know how to live and counter them or to live within a system that is built around them. So, law number 3 and law number 14. 14 is one of the most important ones, is pose as a friend.
What?
Pose as a friend. Law number 3 is never let them know your intentions. Skepticism is so rampant in our community because we've been mishandled.
Been through some shit.
How do you continue to hang your hat on the mantle of activists for our community when you know that there are going to potentially be some people that may say, are you posing? Are you a double agent? Are you a sleeper agent? Are you being placed here?
Are you a Manchurian candidate?
Exactly. Like, because I mean, this is overly impressive. The amount of knowledge that you have, the amount of work that you're doing, the passion that you have behind it. I'm sitting next to you, and I can, like I told you, I can tell that it's genuine. I feel that it's genuine. But there's going to be skeptics that are saying, "What are you really doing this work for?" Does that affect the reason you're doing it?
I need skeptics to validate what I'm doing. I need the skepticism. I need the criticism. It keeps me honest. It keeps me sharp. And people have a right to be critical of me and ask questions. And I want to give them answers because it's a weird place. I'm in a minefield, right? And for over 2 years, I pray to God every day about the choice of words I use, that my thoughts don't interfere with His will. I pray about this. And for over 2 years, I've been lucky or good to not step on a mine yet. Mm-hmm. And that would be easy because, I grew up for decades using the N-word like it was nothing. And now in my mind, I don't think it. It offends me when I hear it. Like it's a change, but I'm $40,000 in debt doing this. This is the worst business plan you could ever imagine if that's what I was doing it for. I mean, I walked across America last year. I have given up by choice everything to be able to do this. I can't explain it. I don't have kids. I don't have a legacy. I see the importance of education. I understand the danger of racism. And I just wanted to find a way that I fit in where those things intersect, that I could have some small voice.
So, all right, you saying you walked across America like we just ran around the corner to QT or something like that. What was that about, you walking across America? And then what are you doing now? What are your goals and your aspirations? What are you working on now that you can share?
I walked 2,802 miles across America last year.
What?
You didn't know
Wait
that?
a freaking... No.
That's a little bit more than I will walk 500 miles and I...
No. I know about the walk across America, but the mileage, no, I didn't know it was...
I started at the Apollo Theater on 125th Street in Harlem, and I walked to the Charles Drew Medical School in Los Angeles. It took me 7.5 months to do it. I tore my knees up. I have osteoarthritis. My knees are bone on bone. My feet, I tore my body up.
I apologize. I got you mixed up. This wasn't White George. Sorry. We were sitting here with Forrest Gump.
I think I want to go home now.
You're right.
What was the support?
Yeah, what was
the support system behind doing
I was
it?
going to say, how did you even afford that?
I had ended a relationship back in March of last year. It's almost a year ago. And I knew I wanted to walk across America, and I was planning it, and it just wasn't going to work out that person was going to go along with me. So I left with $400 in my pocket and nowhere to go. And so I had to figure out, I had no family, no nothing. So I knew it was now or never, and this was the time. And so I literally figured out, I called some people and said, I'm doing it. And I drove to New York to be on my buddy Ian's podcast. I drove to Texas to drum up support. I drove back to New York. All in a month's time, I got to meet Eddie George at Tennessee State, make a video with him. It was crazy fun. That trip down, but I got back and it hit me. I was like, I'm going to do this now. The idea came to me in prison. It's how I got through being in isolation for 30 days, just the mind part. And I had forgotten about it till I watched a documentary of a guy in a wheelchair rolling across America. Blew me away. Next day, I met a pair of twin brothers who were actively walking across the country, and I knew God had gotten my attention. And then I knew I had to. I didn't know why. And then HBCUs became my why, to tell the stories, Black history, and it became more about meeting people where they are and their cultures. And I would love to tell you it will be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I really thought that. But somewhere along the way, I realized nobody cared if I finished or not. I walked a few thousand miles, and just nobody cared. So I could have quit and walked away, and that made it very hard to keep going. And depression and loneliness is crushing. Like 95% of the time, I had no music on. I just walked in silence, just to be with my thoughts, this self-discipline. And it was hard. And there's times that when I knew no one would care, my body hurts. I don't know how I kept going. I think what made it hard is I realized somewhere about 2,000, 2,100 miles in that this would not be the biggest or most important thing I do in my life like I thought it would. It's just another chapter. That made it hard to finish. I knew that me doing it potentially could cost me my life, and I was okay with it. Because there's twice that my life flashed before my eyes. I had jumped physically in a ditch. Somebody wasn't paying attention on their phone, and if I hadn't have been looking up, I'd have been hit. Other times I was able to get out of the way, so I was careful about where I walked. But I realized the danger, and it's just something I had to do. I can't explain it. I threw everything away. I sacrificed everything because I had to do it.
You were compelled.
Yeah, and the people I met, the alone time, the thought processes, my life is so different than a year ago. And all I did was walk 2,100 miles. Yeah.
It was only a year ago. It's crazy.
What's some? Give us two. Like, just you say about the cool places that you saw, the cool people that you met. What? Give me just two of those things, because I know some of them, but I want to hear your favorites.
I was walking around a park, lake in St. Louis, and there's a big black guy walking, right? And I came up to him, kind of getting in shape. And he's like, "Now I'm getting healthy." And I heard on his earpiece, "Oh my God, who is that?" I heard that, and he goes, "What's your name?" I go, "They call me White George." And I could hear her screaming. It was a coworker who was talking to me, just happened to hear my voice walk up to this stranger. He's a senator or a congressman or representative from St. Louis. Just randomly. So we walked and talked for a while.
She recognized your voice?
She did over the phone. He didn't know who I was. And he's an HBCU grad. And so we walked and talked. And then Oklahoma, I'm walking. And I walked several miles with this old white guy named Paul. And I'm giving him my story. And at the end, I go, "Paul, what do you do?" He goes, "I'm the Archbishop of the Catholic Diocese for Oklahoma." I go, "Is that a big job?" He goes, "I'm the top dog Catholic in the state." I'm like, "Cool, you got a card?" And just the most. And I had an old lady on one of those little jazzy scooters come by in Pennsylvania, a little white lady. She had to be 80, and she went by. I saw the finger, and I heard her say, "Move over, fat boy," and she drove around me, and that had to be the greatest thing that happened to me. Because at 80 years old, she's got that kind of moxie. Her husband. She's throwing it to. I'm like, almost had a crush on her.
Almost had a crush.
I'm walking 3 miles an hour. She's driving 4.3 around me. And I was like, it's the funniest thing that happened to me. I'm not upset.
That is hilarious.
I didn't buy my dinners going across the country. I'd be at a restaurant waiting to be seated and to talk to. See, I'm walking across the country. I just had to whatever. And I never. Would you eat with us and tell us stories?
Awesome.
So I learned to trade stories for steak dinners. Since you're an Eagles fan, shout out to Freddie Mitchell, FredEx. He took me to dinner in Philadelphia.
Right.
Put me up at a room. Freddie's a great guy. Freddie went to federal prison. I don't know if you knew that. Spent some years in prison. And got his life back. And Freddie's a good dude. But yeah, there's an Eagle for you.
Nice.
I like Freddie. I met JT Thomas at the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a 4-time Super Bowl winner. First black American player at Florida State. First one to graduate. And a first-round draft pick by the Steelers. He played opposite Mel Blount.
I knew two of those.
And I got to eat lunch with him.
That's
nice.
dope.
And so we talked for 3 hours, and he's telling me about how he intercepted Fred Biletnikoff in college. I'm going, dude's royalty. And I'm a huge Steeler fan.
Where's the freaking? All right, so when people come in, we sit. There's stuff here. People have brought drinks. People have brought weed. People have brought fruit. Where's the book of the walk to here?
Right, yeah.
I'm working on okay, don't laugh at my title, Memoirs of a Nobody. Because all inside, we always feel like a nobody inside, right? So it's the title I've had for 30 years, but I think I'm going to tell it in anecdotal stories. And I met a gentleman who's I don't know how to describe his career. He's very big and prominent in journalism, and he asked me if he could write it.
Right.
So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to start working on this year. I mean, I'm starting to outline it. My agent, Michelle, and I have been talking about how to structure it. She's going to help me because that's her expertise. But yeah, that. And then I think there's more than one book, to be honest.
Sounds like it.
Of course.
But people often ask me about my story, and I thought I would just tell it in that way, so they have.
I mean, you're a fascinating character, man. What are you working on right now? What's the current mission?
Everything's evolving so fast. I mean, I want to go to more colleges this year because I still have 60-something schools to see, but I'm getting to speak more at places. God, I've got so much going on. I know schools. I got homecomings this fall. You know, in the process, I'm trying to find a way to make a living doing this too, to be able to fund all this. But I want to, as I keep going to HBCUs, because I'm going to step foot and make a video on every single campus, and I want to go because I love the homecoming culture, and it's something I will never get tired of. But I love so that is something that's always going to be in my life. But I also want to start pivoting to the prison jail space because Black Americans are disproportionately incarcerated, and they naturally align with HBCUs. And I have a very soft spot for inmates or incarcerated people, so things I can do to help those who want to help themselves, that's become important to me, and I kind of want to be in that space too.
Nice. Look, man, if this isn't a compelling story for you guys, I don't know what would be. So share your handle, right, on Instagram.
With George.
And then is there a way where people can support you? Like,
I have a GoFundMe. I took the link down because I'm not walking anymore. I would say DM me because I hate asking for money. So, yeah.
Closed mouths don't.
I will tell you this. The one thing I do, you can reach out, is I teach people how to build stories, how to storytell, how to write, how to create their image for their page, how to structure a story, how to build their platform, because it'll work. It's science. So I do that. That's the thing.
With over 350,000 on Instagram and over 500,000 on TikTok, you're obviously doing something right.
I'm on pace to do 250 million views in 2025 right now.
Nice.
Wow.
I've already done 270 million, but I'm hitting. Well, that's just Instagram. Yeah.
But you're compelling, though. That doesn't shock me at all. So I was talking over you when you said it. So share your handle, and we'll have it on the bottom.
With George. Okay, I'll just say this. They call me White George because I'm George and I'm white. That's obvious. People don't realize my name is George Witt Sedberry, WHIT. So when you see the Witt George,
it's real. Know that. Okay.
I inverted it, and it became white. But here's the thing. I went to school with people who don't know my middle name. I've been called GW my whole life by my initials. That's how everybody knows me back where I'm from. And I still won't tell them. So my email address is GWHITS1. It's G, my first initial, middle name, last initial letter, and number 1. That's my email address for over a decade. No one realizes they're staring at my middle name the entire time. They're still asking me what it stands for, and they're emailing me looking at it. So I've always had fun with it. My caller ID's Mac Daddy.
No way.
Oh, I'm not. Can I call a doctor's office, Mr. Daddy? Yeah, that's me. Mac Daddy, Daddy, comma Mac or Mac Daddy. Oh no, people won't answer. They call me back. It's like, that's you.
Well, first of all, I would never say Mr. Dad. I'd be like Mr. Mac. Let's get that straight.
I was at MetLife Stadium a couple of years ago for an HBCU game, and I told the person with me, I said, "You're going to hear people yell Mac Daddy at me from stands and like whatever." And there were people doing it from Mac Daddy, and I'm like, "Told you."
See?
I always wanted it to happen, right? So I had to put the work in for a long time to be called Mac Daddy. And don't laugh at my email address. Dadbod2XL.
Dadbod. Wait, this 2XL.
I'm not laughing. I'm not. This isn't laugh.
People don't forget it.
You're my hero.
I'm breathing deeply.
I'm not gonna have some official email. I'd rather have Dadbod. It drives her crazy.
The Witt George on Instagram and on TikTok.
White George on TikTok.
Yeah, so it is White George on TikTok. StoneStafford.com. Any and everything is there.
Just Johnny Vaughn, JUSTJONYVAN on your stuff.
And everything for the podcast, lifeonpodcast.com. Tell a friend. This is literally one of the best episodes we've had.
Thank you.
No shade to anyone else, but I was very excited. Could not wait to get you. And thanks for giving me a second chance.
Can we say a prayer that the mics worked?
That will be on Johnny today.
Touched them, so they worked.
Yo, thank you. We love y'all. Be sure to share a friend. Make sure you follow the Witt George on Instagram and on all the other kind of stuff. And we will see y'all in the next one. Peace. We out.
So back to what I was saying.